Okay, welcome everyone to the Forget Perfect Leadership interview series. And I am so excited to have Theresa Reno-Weber with us today. She is the CEO of Good Maps and has a really awesome career trajectory and story and different leadership roles. So I'm excited for us to dig in today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to, get deep and talk about all the things.
So for those of us that are listening and don't know you, just tell us a little bit about yourself and like your leadership journey.
Yeah. Well, it's probably been a little bit unique, especially if any of your listeners are sitting here in, Kentucky or the region,
Yeah.
because I actually got my career start in the U.S. Coast Guard. So went to the Coast Guard Academy. I'm from Connecticut originally, so close to the shore, and grew up in a very military centered family. So lots of
Hmm.
men, Italian heritage, all of them served, my grandfathers, my great uncles, my father. None of them made it a career, but they all served in some way, shape, or form. And so I knew growing up that like I wanted to do something to honor the service that my family, had all done. And but I didn't want to train to kill people. Love that there are people that are willing to do that. And so the Coast Guard was like a really great kind of mix of military service. I went to the Coast Guard Academy. I was
Hmm.
commissioned as an officer. I did 6 years in really unique, interesting Coast Guard positions. I was on a Coast Guard ship. We circumnavigated the globe. We went to the Persian Gulf and enforced UN sanctions against Iraq in 2001 with the
Yeah.
Navy. I was in Miami, Florida, working on migrant interdiction, drug ops, search and rescue, all of those types of things. And then I did my last assignment was actually on Capitol Hill as a liaison for the Coast Guard to Congress. So a really cool
Yeah.
early start to my career. Loved it. Also realized that I don't like being told what to do, probably like many entrepreneurs or folks
Right.
out there. Um, that goes at odds with the military. They kind of tell you what to do and where to
Right.
go. And I had some thoughts about that, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know that I agree with some of the policies we're enforcing. I don't know if I agree with some of the ways that we're doing this. And so, had the thought that I wanted to get out and get on the other side of that. And to me, that was going to a public policy school. I was very fortunate. Got into Harvard, went to the Kennedy School. It's where I met my husband, which is always the answer of how I got myself to Kentucky because he's a good old
Right.
Kentucky boy from Louisville. And we were both at the public policy, school there. And a bit because of my time on Capitol Hill, I was really interested in seeing how business solved problems. And
Yeah.
so, kind of uniquely, I transitioned from a public policy degree and a military start to a consulting company. And I went to work for McKinsey and Company, which is a global consulting
Yep.
firm. I loved that work. I got to see really interesting problems for telecom companies in the Middle East to, government agencies here to for profits to a whole bunch of different organizations and see how some of the brightest minds in the world solve those problems, like the structures they put around them. So it was a really great grounding for me. But I was traveling all around the country, 4 days a week as consultants do, and we were starting our
Mhm.
family. And so I had an opportunity to move over into a new position that then Mayor Fisher was starting within local city government in Louisville. And so became the first chief of performance improvement for the city and
Yeah.
brought strategy and technology and data work into local city government and how agencies deliver better services to citizens. Loved that job, was quite happy doing it. Really felt like we had hit our stride. We were getting international recognition, national recognition. And then a headhunter reached out and asked me to interview for the CEO role at Metro United Way, which that wasn't on my bingo card. I had
Right.
never said I wanted to be a nonprofit CEO, but I loved the work of serving our community and doing things that I felt like were making a difference right here in my hometown, where we were raising a family. And so I applied for it, and I was fortunate enough to become the CEO in the organization's 100th anniversary year,
That's awesome.
which was so fun. And I used to say all the time, we are a 100-year-old startup. And so I got to really, cut my teeth on having my own organization, my own board, really trying to take that thing to new heights. Loved the work there. It was incredibly challenging. We did it, also through COVID,
Mhm.
also through the unrest in the city and the Breonna Taylor, situation and all of that, which was so hard to lead through, but also incredibly rewarding.
Yeah.
And then, as you know, my husband and I, had been planning and plotting to take a sabbatical year at some point. We had been saving money for 10 years. And it just so coincided that, we felt like the right time in our lives, our kids' lives, our families, parents' health, all of that was to basically take a pause. And so I stepped down from being the CEO of Metro United Way. We went out of the country for a year, 2021 to
Love it.
2022. Homeschooled the kids. We gave them a program that homeschooled them, and then we graded their assignments.
Yeah.
And went around the world, and just saw and did so much together as a family, and then came back. And long way to get to the answer how I got to Good Maps. Started having coffee and trying to figure out, like, okay, what am I going to do next?
Right.
And found myself here now at Good Maps.
That's amazing. I didn't know about this just really special and interesting career journey. So back to the year sabbatical, where were some of your favorite places that you all traveled?
Yeah, so it's funny when we were thinking about it, we were trying to really figure out, like, do we want to go four or three or four places and just kind of like homestay and
Yeah.
then explore a region, or do we want to try to see as much as possible? And we chose the see as much as possible. And so we ended up hitting 38 countries and 80 cities. So we were not, we didn't settle a
Yeah.
bunch of dust underneath us. We just kept moving. But I obviously, having been in the Coast Guard, anytime I get to be on the water, I love it. And
Yeah.
so we got our kids scuba certified.
Okay.
Um, when they were, little kids, so like junior divers,
Yeah.
in Thailand.
Okay.
We spent a month in Thailand. So we did Bangkok and Chiang Mai and then Phuket, and they got certified in Phuket. And then we went to Australia and the Great Barrier Reef and did a dive boat. To me, that was like highlight. We lived on the
Okay.
boat for like 2 nights, did a bunch of dives, a night dive, a shark dive. I mean,
Yeah.
just incredible. My husband would tell you his favorite was Bolivia. We went to the
Okay.
salt flats and to Bolivia, and it's a totally different culture and space. And, that was really unique. We did a safari, that was a highlight in
Yes.
Kenya. And I would say the thing that was so awesome for us as a family was that we were traveling during COVID, right? We thought the tail end of COVID was,
Right.
on us. And then, if you all remember,
Yes.
Omicron came back up. And
Yeah.
so we were very dynamic of, like, where can we go? Where can't we go? What country is open? But a lot of people
Right.
weren't traveling. And so in many places, we were the first Americans or tourists to kind of re-enter. And so, like, I remember we were in Petra in Jordan, and like there was 20 people there. Normally they have like a million people there, So
Yeah.
it was really special and amazing. And my parents, who had retired, and my dad had had COVID and been hospitalized, so we thought we were going to lose him, and he pulled
Oh
through.
gosh.
They traveled with us for 8 months. So we had
Oh, love
three
that.
generations for 8 months. My mother-in-law came for 4 months at different points. And so it was so interesting to hear. I moved out of my parents' house, I mean, really when I was like 17, and haven't lived with them since, except to see them for holidays or those types of things.
Yeah.
And so to have 8 months of concentrated time in foreign countries, the stories that I heard from them, or I heard them tell our children, were priceless, that like I probably would have never received, because I just had, we never had that chance to have that conversation as adults, really.
Yeah. But I also love that you all did that because I think so often, like as high achievers and
Yeah,
leaders, we
totally.
say we want to do those things and then we just don't, right? We're out of fear for control of our career trajectory or what's to come instead of trusting the
Right.
timing of life and that everything's going to unfold and prioritizing work instead of what we actually value. So I just love that you all
Yeah.
went for it because I think so often we don't
Yeah.
out
Well,
of
thank you. And
fear.
yeah. And we had so many people who kind of like projected those fears on us. I mean, literally, I had people say, like, what are you doing? You were at the height of your earning potential. And I'm like,
Right.
that's really
Exactly.
not my measure of success. Like,
Yeah.
I think I'll
Right.
be okay, hopefully on the other side. Or, like, aren't you worried about getting a job again? And, I was like, I did have trust that, like, you
Right.
know, my definition of success might be a little different, and I'm going to be okay. And we have
Yeah.
been. So, yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing. But anyway, I hope that people who are listening, if there's something like that in their heart, that they are inspired by you.
Yes.
Just
I hope they just do it. I say go for
do
it.
it.
And the world, like, when you put it out there, I will just say it, a year feels like a long time, and you don't have to do a year. You could do 3 months, you could do 2 months. Like
Right.
there's so many different iterations of the way you could do this. And our kids came back and went right into the next grade. They haven't lost a beat.
Yeah.
They're actually, as you'd imagine, more confident,
Right.
assured humans who have a better perspective because they've seen
Right.
so many different things. And so, and then, everybody was still here doing the things they were doing. Like in some ways it kind of felt like the day after we got back, like we
Yeah.
had never left. So it's a
Right.
very interesting kind of, thing that we put so much fear into it. And then when you just do it,
Yeah.
it often exceeds your expectations.
Yeah. I love that. Um, so you've held many different leadership roles. What does leadership mean to you?
Whew. It's to me, a leader is someone, I think of two different words, right? I think of service on one hand, because I think they're there to actually serve. They're there to serve the
Mhm.
people that work for them, serve the communities or the organizations that they're leading. And I think they're also there to inspire. So it's those two things really for me are, a good leaders that are memorable to me were people who inspired me to want to do, the work that was at hand
Right.
um, in the best of my capacity, but also were a part of like helping me be able to do that, whether that was setting the direction, whether that was providing the resources, whether that was giving me the encouragement and the support to trust my instincts, whether being decisive about things that, only the leader could decide that then could be removing, blockers or other things. And so when I think of leadership, I think of inspiration and service.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Um, I feel like we talked about this a little before we hit record, but the pace of life is truly relentless
Yes.
right now. I've heard someone describe it that way, and I'm like, that will be the only way I describe it moving
Yeah.
forward. It is relentless.
100%.
What do you think are some of the most important leadership skills right now?
Ooh, I mean, I do think being able to be humble and like have a bit of humility, right? Because I do think,
Yeah.
especially right now, like not only the pace of the world, but like the pace of information, the pace of technology development, the
Right.
pace of all of it. There's nobody who's going to know it all. And leaders coming forward today, like I think need to be humble and have a bit of humility to recognize what they know and what they don't know,
Yeah.
and to look for support from within their organization or without their organization. And sometimes that's going to look like somebody very junior to you, junior in the sense of
Right.
age or tenure in the company or the organization or
Yeah.
position. So I think that's critical component of that. I also think because of all the noise around us, like people do need to protect their sanity.
Yeah.
And my husband and I talk about this a lot, and it's not, anything that's necessarily new, but I think it's always an important reminder of like, if you are an executive, a professional, like you should treat yourself like a high performance athlete. And like high performance athletes do some things really well to be at the top of their game.
Right.
One, they have a coach, right? There's no high performance athlete out there without a coach. None of them are like, I got this, even if they're the like best.
Right.
So they have a coach. Two, they fuel their body well, they get good sleep, they just take care and they rest when they need to rest. And
Yeah.
so I think sometimes as leaders, we feel like because everything is moving so quickly, we have to move as quickly all the time. And I'm guilty of it. I'm a type A personality.
Right.
But I do think having that moment of being able to, feed into yourself in ways that are going to make you better, both from a clarity standpoint, a physical standpoint, a stamina standpoint, it's just going to serve you.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been talking about that a lot because I really feel like we have this kind of productivity dilemma with the relentless pace of life. And I think, like for me, I like to think in systems, right? If something isn't working in the workplace, for me, it's because it's a systems issue, right? If people are not getting their work done and it's meeting after meeting after meeting, I'm like, that is a cultural, like foundational system,
Something's breaking down. Yeah.
right? Um, that's kind of my approach to consulting. But I think like the organizations that are going to thrive are the ones that build that in, require rest, require coaching, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And so I think, how do we as workplaces get out in front of that and have like required downtime
Right.
hours almost,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's nap time for the whole company.
Yeah. And like you're locked out of your like email, like it's like
Yeah.
it starts and you can't access your email and you have to actually like go outside or, do
Love it.
something like
Yeah.
that.
As my kids say, touch grass.
Yes, touch grass.
You have to teach them.
Um, so I also think effective decision making is one of the most important skills. And again, with this increased kind of the need for decision velocity, velocity, but also
Yep.
collaboration. Um, and we never have all the information, right, to
Yeah.
make a
Yeah. Yeah.
decision. So how do you approach decision making?
I do actually. I think you're exactly right. Like to me, and I heard somebody else say this, and I've seen it play out in the organizations I've been in. That is one of the best things a leader can do is try to remove ambiguity from the organization and be
Yeah.
decisive. Right? You always want to pull as much information as you can. Um, Mayor Fisher, when I worked under him, had this great term, which was 60% and go. And it's
Yeah.
such, he came out of the business side. He was an entrepreneur himself, a very successful one. And I love that because he was very clear, and it's served us well here as Good Mouse as well, is like, if you wait for the perfect solution or all the
Right.
information or whatever it is, sorry, I should turn this off. You are going to, be behind when you finally go to market. And any of your competitors who go to market with, a 60% solution, a 70% solution, they're going to start getting feedback immediately from the market or, putting it to air and kind of seeing what they need to improve. And they're going to spin that flywheel so much faster.
Yeah.
And so I have taken that with me and I've tried to share it with each of my teams going forward. It's like 60% ago, we are not doing brain surgery here. You know, we
Right.
are not doing any, there are certain times where you don't want 60%. But for every role
Yeah.
I've been in, the
Yeah.
60% and go has been a good mantra to say, I don't need perfect information. I need enough information to make an informed decision and
Right.
to move forward. And then have enough confidence that if it's not the right one, we can change it, we can pivot. But it's better than kind of languishing in this, like, what are we doing?
Yeah. And I also think like we don't teach decision making enough.
No,
I
no, true.
mean, it's like, good luck. Hope you figure it out. And I think it really is like it erodes trust with your team when you're
Mhm.
indecisive, when you go back and forth, when you're not confident in your own decisions. And so I think it's an opportunity um,
100%.
for
Yeah.
organizations to teach their leaders to be effective decision makers. We talk a lot about trust in the workplace and the importance of trust. Like,
Mhm.
what do you think the role of trust is in culture
Oh,
and organizations?
yeah, I think it's so high. And it's so fun because you're getting me after literally 2 sessions with a former classmate of mine from the Coast Guard Academy who just wrote a
Okay.
book called Intrusive Leadership. I'm going to get you
Oh,
a copy of it. I know, a bit provocative, right? Like, who wants an intrusive leader? But it really is about identifying the whole person and understanding what your individual, employees or team members need that motivates them, right? Like, what motivates you is going to be different than what motivates me, and you can't have a one size fits all.
right,
Um, but a part of that journey is building trust and having your team really understand and know that they can trust you and that they can expect that you have their best interests. You have the
yeah,
organization's best interest, but you also value them as an individual. And you want to support them as best as you can within the confines of what the business objectives are and the other, sort of components,
yeah,
right? So, a part of that in my mind, like from a leader standpoint, humility does play into it a bit. I think transparency is really important. Like,
yeah,
what are you communicating to your team, about the trade-offs in the decisions that you have to make,
right,
whether it's for them or for the company or for the customer, being really clear about where those things lie and how you're weighing them, what your process is,
right,
so that they can have a better understanding. They may not agree with it, but at least they'll know why and how you got there, right? And I think that
right,
that does build a lot of trust. And recognizing, to the point earlier about like when we might need to push pause or when somebody might need to push pause. Life events are going to happen. Like, we're all
right,
human. And I do think, I remember and I laugh, I think it was in a movie or some point, somebody speaking about something they didn't want to do, like, and it
yeah,
was like, well, that's what the paycheck is for. Like, that's why I pay you like to do
yeah,
things you don't want to do. Right. But
right,
sometimes like, it's not about the work itself. It's about like, hey, I've got a sick parent or a sick child,
right,
or, I've got something that I need to take care of. And I think leaders who are able to be aware of those situations, recognize them, give people some freedom and space when they
right,
can. It's not going to be every time, like, but it's going to be when those situations come up. I think your employees, your team members want to trust that you're going to recognize, and support them through the hard, pieces of life that
right,
inevitably are going to show up.
yeah. One of the phrases we teach is just connect before content.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're about to start a one-on-one, like just ask the person how they're doing before
Yeah,
you go into the agenda. Like when you're in a team meeting, like save 8 minutes for updates and
great.
going around,
Yeah.
just connect before content.
Yeah, I love that. That's such a great phrase. Like, are you
Yeah,
able to be fully present? Like, what's going on in your world? Like, is there something that's top of mind for you that we need to be aware of, or that you're just not going to be able to be fully here because of something?
right. Yeah. And I think too, like yeah, presence. Like I think the power of presence and being where your feet are. And like that's a trust builder. Like when you're in a
Right.
one-on-one with someone, you are fully present. Your phone is somewhere else. You're not getting, Microsoft Team notifications. Like you are where your feet are, or, when you're with your family. I mean, we can't do it all the time, but, you
Yeah.
know, are we
Yeah.
where?
Trying to set those boundaries and those
Yeah.
parameters and give that space to those who are
Yeah.
around you, I think breeds that trust, and it just supports everyone to kind of be able to show up better.
Yeah. So how do you set boundaries for your life?
Ooh. I'm getting better. No, honestly, I do think that framing for me, it's been something that my husband and I have been working on because we're both kind of wired the same way. We're both
Yeah.
running startups right now.
Yeah.
Um, but it is that idea of like, I need to treat myself like a high performance athlete. And so I need to give myself like a check in and a permission to say, like, I have to get offline. I can't keep staring at this thing.
Right.
I have to, rest. I have to fuel. I have to step away. I have to keep my body, in shape. I'm a runner. And so running is kind of my meditative state. And so I don't even listen to music. I just go out and like zone and,
Awesome.
yeah, think about all the things. And so, running is definitely a help. Trying to get sleep. I'm trying to be so much better about my sleep. I mean,
Yes.
I'm literally, I've got a journal, and it's like I'm tracking like how many days in the week am I getting 7 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And,
So
most of the
important.
time it's like six or less, but I know that like that's my goal. That's how I
Yeah.
perform the best. Um, so I'm really trying to be much more intentional about those things. I love to travel. That's my obviously, one
Yeah.
of my happy places. And so and I think why I love that so much is it, especially I like to travel. I don't like to vacation. We just had this kind of
Okay.
distinction. So like I know vacations are important, but I like to travel. And travel, somebody said it really well. They're like, vacation is when you go to unplug from the world,
Yeah.
and traveling is when you go to plug in to a different world.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool. And I think I am much more of someone who likes to travel, but it puts me in kind of like a zen kind of space also, where I can't be thinking about other
Yeah.
things but that. And so those are how I try to like create space for me.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah. I've
Yeah.
also learned that I am somebody who is going to be best able to crank out like my most complex work early in the morning.
Yeah.
Um, so if I get up early, I can do things so quickly between
I
5 a.m.
know.
and 7 a.m. And
Me
then if
too.
I'm trying to do the same task at night, it's going to take me like an hour to do
Yeah.
something that I could take like, 5 minutes in the morning to do. So I just
I
shut the computer and move on.
Same way, same way. That's hilarious, the difference between vacation. I call it vacation or trip, but
Yeah.
yes, like vacation
Yeah.
or travel. In this season, I'm a vacationer. Like I was raised by a travel agent, and so we did a lot of the
Traveling.
travel, which I
Yeah.
love. But yes, I want to make no decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
I hear you.
know?
And again,
Like,
there's a space for that. We just came
right,
back from a
right,
vacation, which was
right, right.
lovely. Yeah.
I also like to know when we decide, like this is travel and this is vacation. So I think it's very good to know, set expectations up front.
100%. Yes.
I love that. What are you reading right now? Or what
Ooh.
have you recently
Um,
read?
So, okay. So, those who know me well know that I am a great supporter of our local author here, J.R. Ward.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if you know her, Jessica Bird. Her pen name is J.R. Ward. She
I'll have to
writes a
check her
very
out.
famous series called The Black Dagger Brotherhood.
Okay.
Um, my husband calls it vampire porn. Um,
Okay.
so, there you go for your listeners.
Yeah.
A little fun,
Yeah.
salacious content for you to go dig into. Um, she's got like 25 books. I mean, she's a best-selling author. She's
Amazing.
phenomenal. And I read through every single thing. She's just starting a new series that is much more in the kind of fantasy world space,
Yeah.
even more so than vampires, and so I love those. Those are my guilty pleasure kind of books. I am also nerding out right now in the book Titan, about
Yes.
J.D. Rockefeller. Incredible. It's a very dense read, but it's
Yes.
fascinating to hear about the time, as he was coming up, and Standard Oil, and the way he approached things. So that's very interesting. and then I'll do a plug for my friend's book, Intrusive Leadership, because
Yes.
I think it's great. And it's a very short, quick read. And he just spoke, him and his team, his leadership group just spoke at the Leading Better Summit for Leadership Louisville this morning.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's
So
really,
those are
really
Titan, Intrusive Leadership, and any of the Black Dagger Brotherhood books from J.R. Ward.
yeah. I love that. I love that. Um, what's a piece of advice that you would give to leaders right now?
Mm. Um, I think for leaders right now, I would say, it is important to protect your peace. I think that's really critical,
Yep.
because I think by the nature of being a leader, you are going to be out there and there's going to be a lot coming at you. And I think recognizing that this moment, is a moment and, you're here for the marathon, not the sprint. And I have to remind myself of that because I'm running a startup and a startup feels like you're sprinting a marathon. Um,
Yeah.
but you've got to find the ways
Yeah.
to be able to protect your peace through all of that. So I think that's important. For folks who might be on their leadership journey, it's also, I always try to remind myself that just showing up is, 80%, if not
Right.
more, of what it takes to be successful.
Yeah.
And we can get in our own head about we're too tired, we're going to show up too late, we're all these other things. But every single time I, push through that noise and I show up, even if I'm showing up somewhere somewhat late or I'm showing up somewhere,
Right.
on the heels of running from other things,
Yeah.
I'm grateful for being there with my team, with the community, with other business professionals. And so, those things might feel counter, protect your peace and just show up. But I do feel
Yeah.
like,
They can coexist. They can
yeah, they can
coexist.
coexist. They need to, right? I think
Yeah.
it's really critical.
Yeah. And then finally, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned running a startup?
Ooh, it is the hardest thing to do in the world. No, I was reflecting to somebody recently, I had a pretty powerful military career in terms of like the situations that I was in, some high stress situations, being in the
Mhm.
Persian Gulf. We were at battle quarters the entire time we were there, uh, running a startup through COVID, through the
Yeah.
social unrest in our community. Those were very harrowing, difficult moments. Um, Running a startup has been the most stressful and most harrowing job I have ever had. Um, Trying to figure out, if you're going to make payroll in 2 weeks,
Mhm. Yeah.
or if you're going to have the resources to meet the demand that you're seeing from customers, trying to get the escape velocity
Hmm.
to, profitability,
Right.
taking other people's money, in a high risk situation. And again, trying to do and make the most of that. It is incredibly stressful. And incredibly rewarding also. It is,
Yeah.
somebody had said it's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And I
Yeah.
really think it is so true. But also it's fascinating running a startup now. In this startup that I am in, I did not have the benefit of founding. It was founded almost 8 years ago,
Yeah.
by the American Printing House for the Blind. They hired a brilliant, CEO to come in and try to like take it forward, and they did a fantastic job creating the foundation of the company that we have today.
Right.
Um, but as we look at the pace of technology and AI and the
Right.
talent that's out there, like I honestly think, if we were starting today, this business would have been built in 2 years, probably with half the time
Right.
and money, right? And so that's just a really interesting insight, though, recognizing the other competitors that are coming up in the market in the space, right? Like they've got a pace that, it took us a while to get here. Now we've got first mover advantage. We've got
Right.
trusted relationships. We've got years of validated user testing and, all
Right.
of the things that, we think is why we're going to win in the market. But
Yeah.
it is a very fast-paced space, as we said at
Yeah.
the very beginning of this, and you've got to stay on your toes and kind of keep leaning in to stay competitive, and to stay at the front if that's where you find yourself and that's where
Yeah.
you want to stay.
Yeah. And then what are you loving the most? We'll close with that. What are you loving the
Oh,
most about the startup world?
um, well, okay. So what am I loving most about the startup world? I am learning a ton. Like I'm a lifelong learner. I absolutely love going into different sectors and learning. I think I got that very early in my career, right? In the military, you change jobs every 2 to 3 years. As a
Yeah.
consultant, you change jobs every 6 to 8 months. And
Yeah.
so I've always hungered for going into a space, learning it, mastering it, trying to, take it to the next level. And so, I've been now with Good Maps for 4 years, which is crazy. I've
Yeah.
been the CEO for two. I am learning something new every single day about, the startup sort of space, about fundraising in this space, raising capital, about the technology, about how technology is evolving, about our
Yeah.
customers, about the different verticals. So I love that energy. I love learning. I love how rewarding it is when we are able to unlock a space for individuals from whom that has been a barrier to entry. So for those who don't know, Good Maps, we are an indoor mapping and positioning and navigation company. So think of us as like your GPS and Google Maps. We have a really sophisticated positioning system for indoor complex spaces. But we launched out of the American Printing House for the Blind. And so we have developed our technology from the ground up to be fully accessible, not only for blind and low vision, but for every other disability group that we've done user testing with. And so going into our customers' venues and having someone who is blind be able to navigate themselves independently for the first time, and how that
Yeah.
feels to them, but also to me, is like, it's just awesome. It's so
That's
exciting.
amazing. I love that. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time. I can't wait for everyone to hear and listen to this. And I just really appreciate you, Theresa. Thank you.
Well, thank you for doing this series and having these
Yeah.
conversations and trying to like demystify, the world of leadership and, trust in organizations and the crazy of startups.
I know. Thank you.
You're welcome.